Well, welcome to another episode of the Daily Combat Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Stockbridge, and joining me today is former Olympic hopeful turned boxer, Izzy Rossitano.
Yo, what's up? What's up?
Arm wrestling sensation, Roman Rockwell.
Howdy.
And Matthew Hollywood Connolly, arm wrestling influencer extraordinaire. And joining us today is, well, none other than Ryan Blue Bowen. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Team, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure to do this sort of thing. I'm always grateful for people in this sort of space in the sporting world. So happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
So Ryan, you're an arm wrestling champion. You're arguably one of the most influential people in the world in the sport today, and I really want to get into how that came to be. But no doubt, you're Australia's #1 arm wrestling influencer. It's a real niche sport and a niche combat sport within all of the niches of combat sports. So tell us, what's your first living memory of arm wrestling?
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning all those different things. The sport, being an influencer in the sport, it's a hell of a privilege to just even be in this place. And when I think back to my first living memory of arm wrestling, it's probably being like, I don't know, 5 years old. I wanted to beat my dad in an arm wrestle from as early as I can remember.
Wow.
Obviously, I wasn't able to do it at 5, but I grew up.
By the age of 7, you were fine.
I grew up arm wrestling everyone at school. I loved it. I would constantly be hassling kids in the year groups above me to arm wrestle me, and nothing changed as I went through my teenage years and all that sort of stuff. And I actually had a bet with my dad when I was 12 years old. I said, "Dad, on my 18th birthday, $50 on an arm wrestle," and he's like, "Yep, on, okay."
Young lion, old lion.
It was 6 months leading up to my birthday. I at this stage, I had no idea professional arm wrestling was even a thing. So I used to have a bench press out in the shed that had on the end of the bench press one of those leg extension kind of add-on.
They're $120 from Big W.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to put my elbow down on the end of that bench and pull up the leg extension and sit there and just go direct side pressure.
Wow.
Nice. The leg extension. So that was my childhood. Turns out my dad absolutely kicked my ass on my head.
Wow.
No training whatsoever, I'm guessing.
He's got those thick hand and wrists on him. He's been a farmer all his life. He's just got that old man strength.
Yeah. And so you said you didn't even realise it was a sport at that stage?
No, I had no idea that there was any sort of professional side to arm wrestling at all. For me, at that point in time, it was just bragging rights in the schoolyard. When I became an adult, I went and joined the army, and it was the same thing there for me. I used to arm wrestle everyone in my platoon and battalion, and was the guy to beat, and comfortably held that rank. And this was all without knowing anything. And then
how did you develop a technique? Did you have a technique, or did you know what you were doing?
Me arm wrestling from when I was a kid, because I would love to know. I'd love to look at it and go, "Oh my goodness, look how terrible I was back then."
Yep.
But obviously, I had some sort of genetic disposition towards arm wrestling, because I was essentially among my social networks in school and work, no one ever beat me, really. But I'm sorry, I lie right there.
There's somebody watching this going, hang on, I beat him
in 1984.
I came back from school one day, I think it was in year 11, and my mum, when I'd get home from school, would always ask me how my day was. And this afternoon, when she asked me that question, I came in and said, "Mum, I've had the worst day I've ever had in my life."
Oh.
My mum's thinking something terrible's happened at school.
You're being bullied, or
and I said, "What happened?" I said, "I dropped my first ever catch in cricket, and I lost my first ever arm wrestle."
This is crazy. That happened to me too. It was year 11 or year 12. One guy beat me for the first time. I was the same. It's crazy to hear this, because you're Australia's best arm wrestler. So maybe there's hope for me. Yeah.
It was on the same day.
I remember the same day. Yeah, no, I remember that day.
The same guy beat both of you.
Yeah. That bastard.
That day really did knock me around. I just couldn't believe it. I thought I was going to go through school totally undefeated. This damn new kid. And the thing was that made it even worse was he was 6 months younger than me.
He was 6 months is everything when you're 11. Yeah.
I remember his name, Jimmy Coleman.
Jimmy Coleman. No way, that was the same guy. No.
Transfer
You
school.
need the rematch, Jimmy.
What if he still beat you? I would just.
Hasn't been training, nothing just stands up. Yeah.
But how I discovered it as a professional thing was when I owned a retail supplement store after I got out of the army in 2011, and it was my wholesale resupplier challenged me to an arm wrestle one day. Just said, "You want to have an arm wrestle?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Beat me, and I was like, "What the hell? This dude just beat me in an arm wrestle. It doesn't happen out of the blue like that for me." And he was a former national champion kickboxer. So he just had combat in his blood, and he had hands and wrists on him that were really conditioned, and he beat me. And I said to him when he left, I said, "When you come back next month, I'm going to kick your ass, and I'm never going to lose to you again." Is what I said. He just laughed as he left, and I immediately, like 3 seconds after he left the room, I was on the internet researching arm wrestling technique. When I did that,
Down the rabbit hole.
Nice.
Professional arm wrestling, and that there was an Australian arm wrestling federation at the time, and I'm like, hang on, they do national championships and stuff. Oh my goodness, I'm in.
Yeah.
So that was it.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. That's awesome.
And so so through your military life, it was just a passion. It was just something that had formed part of your identity from when you were at school. You kind of associated yourself already as, if maybe not gender specific, you were definitely arm wrestler, if we can call it that. And so you get through your military career, and you're doing this supplement thing, and then arm wrestling, that starts to open up for you more and more. Is that how it started to progress?
The other side of the story behind my motivation in arm wrestling was that before I joined the military, I was trying to become a tennis professional, and I got very close as a teenager. As I was finishing up high school, I was ranked in the top 10 in the country, and my coaches were telling me, "Look, you're right there. You just keep pushing forward. You'll become a legit tennis pro." But I didn't have the mental maturity and self-confidence in myself to actually push forward. And I thought, no, I can't. I don't think I'm going to make it. And unless you were in the top 100 in the world in the professional ranks, you were going to be not making money. And I just thought, no, I'm going to go and get a job. So I went and joined the army. But when I then discovered the arm wrestling, that it was a professional thing, there was a couple of unique things that stood out to me. And one of them was that I observed that the average age of a world champion was realistically about 40 years old, and particularly for North American greats, that was. So at the time I was 28, and I thought, gee whiz, I haven't missed the boat. So that was really one of the big reasons why I went all in. But it for me was a second chance to become a professional athlete. I got close in tennis but missed it, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it in arm wrestling now. And nice. I decided then and there that I wanted to make it a career, and I recognized there was no decent prize money in the sport. So I thought, well, I've got to build a brand and a company that can fund this. And my goal from then was to turn arm wrestling into a career. And it took a while, but we got there.
So a lot of young arm wrestlers, particularly Australian arm wrestlers, when they start that journey of discovering arm wrestling, they come across you. Who was it that you came across in those early years of discovering arm wrestling on YouTube?
The very first day I researched arm wrestling, I remember thinking that Denis Saplenkov was the king of the world. And then it was about a week later that Dad messaged me and said, "Ryan, have you seen this guy, John Brzezinki, yet?" He even beats Denis. And I'm like, what?
Nobody beats Denis.
For me, it was Denis and John were the two that I was most fascinated with in the early days. It didn't take long to discover Devon and those other sort of guys as well. But yeah, it was straight to the top of there wasn't actually that much on YouTube back then. There wasn't a lot of resources. It was all old Nemiroff footage and things like that. And Arm Wars footage was probably a big one. And in fact, Neil Pickup was really influential for me in the early parts of it. I straight away saw that Arm Wars and I perceived Arm Wars to be the place to go to become a professional arm wrestler. And so I reached out and messaged and got in contact with Neil Pickup and said, "Hey, this is me. This is what I want to do. I want to make this a career. How do I get on Arm Wars?" And Neil, having never spoken to me ever, said, oh, look, I need to know that you're a decent arm wrestler. I need to know that you bring character. I need to know that you bring excitement to the table. Send me your highlights reel and I'll consider it. And so the next 6 months, I traveled around Australia hunting people to put in a damn highlights reel.
That's awesome. Nice.
I got a pretty sick highlight reel at the time. And there was one guy one Australian had already been on Arm Wars at that stage, a gentleman named Rick Kamana from WA. And I was like, well, hell, if Rick can make it to Arm Wars, I'm hunting Rick. I'm going to go show Neil Pickup that I can crush Rick Kamana, and I'll get my ticket. And so I did that. I flew over to WA, and Rick Kamana, I think, knew I was hunting him. I think he thought
he hid.
Measure. And I went over there weighing like 83, 84 kilos. And I was just going to go in whatever weight category Rick was in. He was about 90 kilos. And we're signing up at the registration point, and I sign up for 95. And Rick says to me, just as he's about to sign up, he's like, I think I'm going to go and pull the heavies because I just want to make sure I've got a challenge today. And I'm just like, I look at him, and he signs up to the heavies. I'm like, oh, screw it. I cancelled my 95. I'm in the heavies now. And lo and behold, first round, Ryan Bell and Rick Kamana. I'm like, oh, yeah.
There we go.
It was perfect. Cracked his wrist back. Absolutely crushed him, and the celebration was pretty intense, and we got it all for the highlights reel. So.
Fantastic. So for those the uninitiated, Arm Wars, tell us more about Arm Wars. What was Arm Wars then, and what's been the progression since?
Arm Wars then was absolutely the best platform for the sport in terms of reaching a global audience. They were at the time broadcast on Eurosports, which was a part of a pay television network, and it was annual viewership was in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions for annual viewership. Yeah. And they really, really were impressive. And Neil Pickup, what he did for athletes, he gave them the opportunity, the spotlight. The cameras were professional standard, the audio was professional standard. Neil commentated the matches himself. So as you guys know, he's the best commentator in the sport by a long way. Where the athletes got the opportunity to make a career of it was he allowed the athletes to on-sell the space on their uniform and in their cornerman to a third-party sponsor. And Neil, there hadn't been a lot of people that had been able to do that very well. Jeff Hale had done that somewhat successfully, probably the most successfully out of everyone. But I had my Arm Wars match, and it was red line amazing. This match is awesome. And Neil said to me at the end of that match, he said, Ryan, that was brilliant. You can be on any Arm Wars card you want. And I was like, okay. So I went back to Australia. I looked up sports management agencies of NRL athletes and things like that. And I put the sales pitch to them. I said, here, I've just been told that I can be on up to 6 Arm Wars events per year. It's on Eurosports. Here's the viewership. I want to sell. I want you guys to manage that and get me a sponsor to make this a career. And it got so close. I had a deal with an agency, and they were signing me up for 15 grand Australian per event to have that.
That's serious.
I don't know what percentage that was for me and for them, but it was 15 grand coming to me, and I'm just like, oh my God.
Okay.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's a year that would have been phenomenal. And what happened is Arm Wars lost its contract with Eurosports before we got that lined up. And it was because of the emergence of WAL and everything like that was on the cards as coming. So Neil shelved that, jumped off Eurosports, and went from there. But that was the beginning of it for me. So
you'd had a taste by that stage, and you thought, there's a chance I can go pro, I can make a living out of this.
Well, yeah, for me, I'm someone who really doesn't. I don't need there to be a pathway shown for me. I'll find the path and make it. I'm pretty relentless. If there's something that I want to pursue, I'll just keep going and we'll get there. And I don't mind taking a loss, whether it's in a business sense or in an arm wrestling sense. It doesn't bother me at all. Let's rack up the losses as quick as I can, I reckon, and I improve a lot from that. So for me, yeah, that was very close to a home run in my first attempt at becoming a professional arm wrestler. When that fell over, it was like, okay, that's cool. I'll go back to just doing what I'm doing, just keep training, keep documenting everything I did. And I started a series from nobody to champ on my YouTube channel, which if you go back and look at now, I look like a 12-year-old boy in those videos.
So you already had this concept of documenting. So you understood that was a foundation stone to content creation. Were you conscious of what that content creation would do for you over time?
I was very. I think I have a good ability to envision the future, and I'm very optimistic. And I did envision it being a full-time job, a career. I envisioned myself as a world champion. I envisioned myself really crushing it in that space. And that's one of the things about me that I think it pisses a lot of people off, rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
But I do have an unwavering confidence that I'll get there, and I'm very patient as well. It doesn't bother me. Like for me, I love doing this so much that I'm just not going to stop. And for the first 4.5 years, for instance, I made $34.50 in the first 4.5 years on YouTube. And yet I know I released just as many videos then as I do now. And that for me is like a good example and the proof of how I was never going to stop. I used to do it during my recreation time. And so I did have the vision that it was going to get there. I watched a lot of a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. It was Gary Vaynerchuk that I used.
Gary V.
Gary V. I watched the way Gary V spoke about his business, and I thought, and I really just took his principles of what he does for his brand and applied it to my own, and it worked a treat, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. And I actually love that I can go back to my videos in 2013. And then tick off all the things that I say I wanted to do in those videos, and it's pretty cool to see it.
Yeah. So do you remember that tipping point, that moment when all of a sudden there was a breakthrough? I don't know if it was a video or a particular event or something where it's like, oh, okay, the world's now paying attention. The people are watching.
There's been a few of those moments, like. Definitely, like one viral video can change business overnight. It seems if you're well postured to take advantage of it. And I've never had what I really deem as like a viral video, but I've had significant moments where it's significantly changed the audience. And the first of those moments was when I came up with a series called The Breakdown. Prior to The Breakdown, all I had done was vlogging of my own journey in arm wrestling, and my average video view was getting about 80 views at that point in time. So really nothing in a sense of money making. But then I started doing the breakdown, and one of the components of the sport for me that I love is just analyzing the technical aspects of the sport. I came into the sport knowing that it's a combat sport and a strength sport combined. So just being strong is not enough. You've got to be better than your opponent in your execution. So I really went all in on that. I thought, well, I'm not the strongest guy naturally out here. I'm not looking like Hulk Hogan as a kid or something. So I'm going to have to be good at the combat side of things as well. And I really studied that combat side of things. And then I started saying, well, hang on a second. Why don't I just commentate matches that I love to watch and tell people what I see?
Offer your insights.
Yeah. And so I started doing that. And that was probably my first viral video in the sense of numbers. I had a video, I think if I look it up now, it's Devin Larratt against Oleg Zok. I commentate that match at the UAL event.
Yeah.
I think it's at about 2.5 million views now, but it went pretty big, pretty quick. And that was one of those chapters where all of a sudden I had people watching my channel for the breakdown. So I started pumping those out pretty regularly. And yeah, that was a big chapter. That led to me thinking about, maybe I should create my own business that provides matches and creates the content itself, so I don't have to use the PAL's matches or the WAL's matches. I can actually host the matches as well. So that led to that. But there's always been kind of two avenues. There's always been myself as an arm wrestler and myself as a commentator / business owner in the arm wrestling space. So that was a big chapter. But I think probably the biggest chapter was the day I met John Brzezinki. That was probably the biggest chapter.
So Tell it, because I think I'm following you at this stage, and then you end up on John Brzezinki's lounge. So for the
That was you.
That's what I
We
was
heard
talking
this story
about
last
last
week.
week. Yeah,
Do
that's
tell us
it.
more. Yeah,
Okay,
it's quite interesting.
So for the audience, for the uninitiated, perhaps you can share with us who John Brzezinki is, and then lead into your blossoming relationship with the great man.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, John Brzezinki. If you don't know who John Brzezinki is, you're obviously very new to arm wrestling. Like day two at worst. I don't think it takes long to discover that man's name. But John Brzezinki is undisputably the greatest arm wrestler of all time. He's won world titles spanning 5 decades. That in itself, right there, I think statistically, he's the most dominant athlete in the history of sport. I don't know if there's another athlete, a world champion out there that's done 5 decades of world titles.
Yeah, you don't see that in tennis.
It really is quite phenomenal. And what else made it amazing about John was the fact that John did it at a weight class where he was like 90 to 95 kilos, and he was crushing the super heavyweights. There's no super heavyweight great in the history of the sport that John doesn't have a win on. And he retired defeating Devin Larratt in 2015 to do it one more time, kind of thing. So, and then John's still thinking about coming back at the moment, but
he is coming back, isn't he? He's got a match schedule.
He's got a match.
Yeah, just amazing. And how old is he now?
Nearly 60. John is
86, I think.
87. Yeah.
So you're joking.
No, he's not.
All right. I was going to say, I was not imagining this guy being like nearly 90.
He's no, he probably still win at 90. How old is he, 50?
If I say spanning 5 decades, that's mathematically making it look good. He was in his teens, in his 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. He's won world titles. So it's not 50 years complete, but it's 5 separate decades that he's done it in. So, like I said, I've always been a fan of super dominant champions in any sport. I want Federer to just keep on winning forever.
Yeah.
That to me, that's super cool. And John is that for the sport. And I don't think there's an arm wrestler anywhere in the world who doesn't admire and respect John for what he's done. So,
do you remember the first time you met him?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
How that came about was a fascinating story. I was actually contacted by Travis Bagent. It was like Christmas holidays. I was just
Travis is a champion arm wrestler in his own right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Travis, one of the all-time greats of the sport, undoubtedly. At this point in time, again, I had no network among arm wrestling greats. I was just a little redhead arm wrestler in Australia who was
a 12-year-old.
And next minute, I'm on Christmas holidays. I get it. I look down my phone. It's ringing through Facebook call, and it says Travis Bagent's calling. And that straight away, I was like nervous. And I couldn't believe it. I got a Travis call. So naturally, I composed myself and answered the call and have a chat with Travis. And he rings me up telling me that he wants me to help him promote an event in Arizona. And I said, what the hell you want me to do that for you for? Like, why? And he said, because every time I open Facebook, all I see is you. So you obviously know how to get attention.
Yeah.
In the sport. So I've got a budget for marketing. I don't want to do it. I want you to do it.
Wow. And how long have you been on this journey of documenting and running your YouTube channel and pushing the social thing?
At that point in time, I was about 4.5 years into it. So
wow. So you definitely persisted, because there's a lot of people that do that for 6 months and then nothing really comes of it, and then that's enough for them. They kind of give up on their dreams. But so are you doing this full time for 4 years before you start getting this level of attention?
I'm operating a sports supplement store.
Yep.
Working, because arm wrestling's definitely not paying the bills. But this is all happening in my recreational time. I don't go to the pub. I don't go to the movies. I don't watch the footy on the weekend. This is everything I do. And late at night, I'd be making content and whatnot. So it was just fun. It was legitimately that fun. And so when Travis called me and asked me to do that, he said, and I'll fly you to Arizona and get your accommodation. And I'm like, okay, yeah, done. Deal.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm there.
Free trip.
And then, so 2 weeks goes by and Travis reaches out to me again and says, hey man, we're about 2 weeks out from my flight over there. So we fast forward to June now. and juniors the next year. And Travis says to me, all right, we need to sort out where your accommodation is going to be. He said, you've got a few choices. There's a bunch of local arm wrestlers that you can stay with them if you want. If you want, you can stay at the casino where the tournament's going to be. And then just tongue in cheek, he throws out, hell, even John Brzezinki lives 45 minutes. and then he quickly takes it back. He goes, but no, you can't stay with the guy.
It's too late. You're already there.
So, but I didn't at that stage. I didn't even know that John lived in that neck of the woods. So, I mentioned to Travis, oh yeah, I think I'll probably stay at the venue, whatnot. That'll work out best for me. But he's planted this seed in the back of my mind. I'm like, shit, John Brzezinki lives down the road. I'm a YouTube content creator. Man, I gotta meet this guy. I can't be that close to John and not go and meet him.
Yeah.
So having never spoken to John in my life, I spent probably an hour or two drafting up a message that I thought would be appropriate to approach the GOAT, to keep it short and sweet, but not sound like an boy, but not be asking too much and all this kind of stuff. I just happened to
delete.
I've been there. I've been there too, Ryan. I've been there too. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
I love you. Oh no, that's too much.
Just
You are my biggest hero.
It's tricky climbing the ladder of network when you're just not in the realm of this person. It's an art, and it's not easy. And I think most people suck at doing it. But I thought to myself, oh well, all right. Look, it was very polite. I introduced myself. I told John why I was going to be there, i.e. to help Travis in the event, and I just happened to mention I'm not sure where I'm staying yet. And John
hint, was it?
Like straight away saying, "Oh man, you're more than welcome to stay here with myself and Renee." And I'm just like, I wasn't even aiming for that. I was aiming and working for just an opportunity to meet them. He said,
unbelievable.
Stay at my house for the week that you're here.
So insane.
So anyway, so I do remember the first time I met John. I flew into Phoenix Airport, and John works at the airport. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm trying so hard not to be a fanboy. Every part of me is just nervous and excited. I'm just like, he's a normal human, just treat him normal.
I've been there, right? Go on.
But meeting him, I probably was only nervous for 10 seconds on meeting him, because he's such a hospitable and nice guy. Literally, he picked me up. We're driving in his nice Audi convertible in this Arizona sun. The music's on, driving around, looking home. We get home. He hands me a beer. We go sit in the pool, and for 7 hours straight, we drank beer, and I listened to arm wrestling stories from John Brzezinki.
Oh man!
Wow.
So you were in heaven. You got off the plane.
Yeah. It was phenomenal. I couldn't believe that was where I was. It was pinch yourself stuff. It was really amazing. But that was how we met. And, there's more to the story on how John impacted the channel, because as I was saying, I was there for Travis's event. I went to the event, and as I was getting to know John over the week that I had there, I was slowly working up and thinking, I just listened to John, observing John. He was very much retired from the sport, very much not involved in anything media for the sport. And I was thinking, how do I ask John, without overstepping my stay, to just if he'd be interested in an interview. Anyway, eventually I asked him if he'd be up for the interview, and he said, "No, to be honest, I've had so many interviews for the sport. To be honest, the questions are always pretty much the same, and I've honestly just got nothing new to say to the sport."
Were you a little bit crushed at this point? You worked up the courage.
It was still just amazing. I'm thinking, it's amazing just to have been here and met John and had these opportunities. And so what happened was we did the tournament with Travis, and it was the last day before I was due to go home. And I was sitting on the couch out in the back area of John's place by the pool. I set up my camera just to film a review for the tournament, and over about 10 minutes I rattle off my take on the video. On the performance of everyone on the tournament. And as I'm doing that, John's just pottering around the backyard watching me. me film this video. And at the end of it, he goes, "Man, you do that really well." And he's like, "Okay, there's no chance I could flow that easily on camera and not sound like an idiot, but you did that really well." And he goes, "What's all this about?" And with that one question of what's all this about, again, 6 beers later, 5 hours, John says to me, "I'm in." And the idea was we hosted a podcast together for about 6 months every week, talking about what was going on in the sport of arm wrestling. So,
Wow.
And was John conscious of what you've been doing in the social space in the lead up to this? What was John's knowledge of you?
That was that 5 hours and beers later, was telling the story of what I'd been doing over the last 4.5 years and building it, and the vision I had for the sport, for what I could do to help contribute to it. And that vision that I did share with John that day was that aside from me becoming an arm wrestler, I want the sport to be able to give other arm wrestlers, and as many of them as I possibly can, give them the opportunity to call it a career as well. So, like for instance, I just can't imagine if John was John in any other sport, he would have such a significant back end media career, and he'd be paid really well for it.
Yeah.
And arm wrestling hasn't given that to John, and I know that it's something that, like, examples like that, I just think I want the sport to grow where there's hundreds of people in the sport, the top athletes, the referees, the commentators, everyone. It's big enough that there's hundreds of people that can call it a career genuinely and do nothing else. And I think John should be one of the very first people that can reach that point. So for me, it's been a lot about that. And John and I actually just kicked off again with a podcast, a regular podcast that's going to be weekly, that started last week. And it's so nice to finally be at the point where I can actually pay and offer John quite a considerable amount of money just to be on the show. And that's awesome, because I know that John, in the 6 months that he was on my channel, which had a phenomenal impact, he refused to let me pay him a cent. He said, "No, just
that's really nice.
Everything that you're offering to pay me, just reinvest it into the company." So John was phenomenal in that respect, and here we are today.
So it's fair to say arm wrestling isn't really a professional sport, apart from at the really the top echelon, and even then it's a relatively new phenomenon for big paychecks, for big tournaments, that type of thing. So how is it that you envisaged creating a platform for yourself to make this a professional sport for you? And then how do you see the sport in 5 or 10 years' time, and that template, that model applying to others?
Yeah, the model that I really designed for myself was, I first of all really believed that arm wrestling, I tried to get my head around and understand advertising value for third-party sponsors. I observed that in the arm wrestling world, most tournaments and most people that had a sponsor, it was more like they had a buddy that was donating something to them than an actual sponsor. There wasn't any real value being given to the actual to the companies that were doing the advertising or making the sponsorship. So I really tried to get my head around the understanding of what advertising is and what it's worth to a company, what an impression is worth of their logo, what a 5-second intro is worth, what a product shout out is worth, and it had to be translatable to real sales for me. And I tried for a while to gain third-party sponsors, and I was able to gain a few here and there in the early days, but nothing significant. And I ended up thinking, I believed so much in the advertising value that I had that I thought, well, I'm just going to then create the company and create a product to sell, because I can't find a company willing to jump on board. So I'm going to create a product. And that was when I launched Pound for Pound Arm Wrestling and started the ball of merchandise. And I started with T-shirts and things like that. And now we're into equipment and straps and everything, in coaching and seminars. So it's expanding. So for me, it was all about creating an opportunity to just build a genuine business and go from there. So that was how I initially got the ball rolling financially for myself. And I always knew that the YouTube earnings directly were going to be the slow build that would someday probably trump everything else for me personally. And it's getting to that point right now where my YouTube earnings are better than my retail earnings, which which I didn't. That's surprising that it's got to that point, but it is now.
So people should be buying more stuff, is what you're saying.
So where can we buy
watching
this
more
stuff?
videos.
How do we shout
Watch
out?
the video, then buy the stuff.
Yeah. Well, poundforpoundarmwrestling.com if anyone wonders where you go to check it out. But which for me, the vision of that, I wanted to end up being the Nike of arm wrestling. I wanted to be the leading brand that provides everything for arm wrestling at a high quality. But the vision for the sport, I think it's, COVID has actually been somewhat of a strange blessing for athletes in our sport. Prior to COVID, the model really was be in a big league, either WAL or PAL, and get a paycheck from them. And very few arm wrestlers were taking the time to invest in their own brand and their own story in a social media space. There was people like Devin who was already doing it and doing it very well. But people like Michael Todd, he was not doing it at all. And so it took COVID for a lot of people, Levan, Hermes Gasparini, Vitaly Leyton, Gennady Kvikvinia. These are all names that have significant followings now. Matt Mask, another one, Rob Chen. These are all names that have all of a sudden jumped up to a decent level of actual earnings on YouTube in the space of 6 months because they've recognized that the big leagues can no longer offer any sort of consistency. They can't offer a guaranteed event, and there's no money in it anymore. I mean, I was 4 days away from getting on a plane to fly to Los Angeles to face Brendan Lemon Mulvihill in WAL, and COVID killed it. So for me, I was like, oh man, what do I do? I have to go back. But I love where the sport's evolved. Athletes now have a much bigger brand for themselves. It provides a much greater global story to any match that is coming up, and it's given athletes control over their financial situation in the sport as well. Like I said, I'm not privy to the earnings of Devon's precisely in that, but it's not hard to work out roughly where their channels are at. I mean, it's all public. You can jump onto any website that analyzes YouTube channels and that. And I think Devon's making maybe $120,000 to $150,000 a year just from his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's only where he's at now. In 12 months' time, probably double that, triple that.
And what kind of influence do you think you've had on those top tier arm wrestlers that perhaps it didn't have these social followings previously or didn't have a platform? Have they really seen you as an example?
I don't want to take credit for any of them, but I've always been.
But you can because
why not? Might as well.
It was all you, right?
Yeah.
I've always been an open door and said to all those guys that look, I'm willing to help anytime, and I have helped. I've spent hundreds of hours on the phone with a whole bunch of different people that have gone on to create content. Michael Todd, probably the most significant. I speak to Michael Todd probably still once or twice a week these days, and it's always we talk about YouTube, and we talk about what to develop next and what direction to go and how to optimize things and how to get things going. And so I've helped a lot, but it's like I said, there's people with real world credibility already can grow really quickly when they do things right. And Michael's a great example of that. He has the real world credibility of being a multiple world champion and being just a genuine badass. And so it didn't take long for his channel to really blow up. And Michael now is at the point where he's at about $80,000 to $100,000. And
wow.
That's
quick.
He's gonna be double that in a year, I'm sure.
yeah,
and it's pretty cool. So, like I said, Matt Mask is a great example. Matt Mask, in the space of literally 2 months, has matched my earnings on YouTube. I'm like,
incredible, yeah.
So when I talk to the guys locally here in Australia, and people so often say, "Oh no, but I'm not a good enough arm wrestler yet," and I'm like, "Bullshit! Just start it now. It'll be more interesting." How interesting would it have been if we had Michael Jordan documenting everything he did from when he was 12?
I've always thought that.
Yeah,
good to see all that.
Yeah.
So start if you have the dream of being a professional arm wrestler, no matter where you're at, start documenting it. Yes, no one watched me for the first 4.5 years. Like literally no one did. And I still talk to him, still talk to that camera like I was talking to millions of people. And if you make it, it becomes super fascinating to be a blueprint to look back at. So one of my goals was always to be that blueprint for both the business side and the athlete side. So I feel like that's going well. And it's fun.
Yeah.
Well, it might have had the biggest impact on arm wrestling, full stop, is your impact on how other arm wrestlers have grown their profile on social media, because I think there'd be a lot of people out there that would have no awareness of Matt Mask, for instance, if it wasn't for the YouTube channel's popularity over recent months, for instance. So if it wasn't for you spreading the word.
There was a real season where there was a lot of pushback. Like when I got my WAL call up, for instance, this is pre-COVID.
You're like the Jake Paul of arm wrestling. That's what you are.
When I got the WAL, so many people were pissed off at me that I got the call. And there was Neil Pickup will tell me he was getting bombarded with messages about all the people that could beat me in an arm wrestle.
Not about that.
That deserved it more than I did. And look, the reality is that there might have been hundreds of people that could beat me in an arm wrestling, that on an arm wrestling table sense may have deserved more than me. They had more runs on the board and whatnot. But what Neil saw in me, and Neil is the primary selector for all WAL matches, is that he knew me from Arm Wars. He knew how driven I was to get into Arm Wars. He knew the performance I did. He knew the way I spoke on the microphone after my match at Arm Wars. And he now saw that I was at the level good enough to be able to compete. And he saw that after I beat Evan Burgoyne in the bottom 8. And that was like, okay, Ryan's at a level now, good enough for the WL. And he said, you were one of the first people I want, because I know you understand the value of branding and that. And so the pushback that I got from a lot of North American mid-tier pullers, I say mid-tier pros, it took them a long time to be willing to stomach the fact that I brought something to the table that they weren't offering as well, in the form of branding and social media, and that I could command more attention for a match. I could make more fans interested than they could. And I'm really happy that a lot of those people that used to be very critical of me now are creating YouTube channels and doing
following the example.
Well, it just goes back to what we were saying 2 weeks ago, that characters and creating storyline is so important. You can have the people that are the world champions and they have their path to victory in terms of building an audience because of their skill level. But you've also got that character that has to be there, that if you can create both, if you have the skill level and you've got somebody that's interesting to watch and you can put a match on where it's like, I really want to see this guy because he's got this or that, or he's crazy or whatever, like Matt Mask, he gets furious before his matches. And it's like, oh, you got to see this guy. He's insane, bringing that and then bringing a level of skill when that's combined, that just, it attracts people to the sport. And so when Neil Pickup sees someone like Ryan Bowen, who's putting videos out every day and he's got this following and he's passionate about the sport and he's skilled, bring that guy on. I want to see that guy because people want to see him. Yeah. Whereas you got somebody, as you were saying, that might be a better arm wrestler or be able to beat Ryan, but it's like no one knows who this person is. They need to have built themselves into a character to be able to get that opportunity. So that's where the sport is at this point.
And I'm guessing there would have been as many people that wanted to see you lose that particular confrontation.
I think I might have wrapped up the world's most hated arm wrestler.
There's a YouTube channel in that somewhere.
So it used to be Michael Todd, but I think I've gone past him.
It's still Michael Todd.
That evolution of the North American arm wrestlers when I came to the WAL, being at first disgruntled and then understanding it, and then starting to support the concept. I think we're now seeing that in an Eastern European sense as well. I see let's be honest, Eastern Europe has a hell of a lot of killers in an arm wrestling sense. There's probably more over there than there is in the rest of the world. But very few Eastern European pullers have a brand that is recognized globally. They have a brand in their own neck of the woods for sure. But no one, like when I watched that East vs. West, I had to start digging and doing really big research to try to get an understanding of who these guys were. I saw countless pre-match interviews and pre-match content come out on the internet, all the Western pullers, and I saw nothing from any of the Eastern side. So I think that the Eastern side of the arm wrestling world is going to be slowly adjusting, and I think they will. Where, like I said, we've got Levan doing content, we've got Hermes doing content, we've got Marty doing content really well now, and they're going to see greater opportunities in the sport because of it. So my hope is that the Eastern arm wrestling side of things will eventually catch on and pick up and start to utilize this as well, because they're currently missing the opportunity for the world.
Yeah. So, like, Ryan, you've been really successful in terms of building the business and more so like building the views, as you've just said. Like, it's really interesting to hear that perspective and how you actually had to build, because I've been in a number of sports that have no platform. But you saw it as an opportunity to, I'm going to build the platform, I'm going to build the money and the income so that I can do this full-time and earn a full-time wage, which is awesome. And I'm sure every athlete who's in the same boat would be very inspired by you. Did you study any business, or was that from your working in a supplement store? How did you teach yourself how to build that?
No, I have no formal degree or anything like that. I suck at studying. I really hate it. In school at doing my homework, I just hated it. I just don't want to do it. That said, I'm fascinated by business. I'm fascinated by entrepreneurial pursuits. I love nothing more than not working for someone.
Yeah.
So it was that self-drive to study. When I say study, or when you ask me study, I can certainly say I studied the hell out of Gary Vaynerchuk. I studied. He was just the guy that happened to pop up on my internet feed that I thought, this guy is doing it right in terms of. And so that was really where I studied to become knowledgeable around the business. But for me, the key things that I learned from Gary was just with speed and execution and patience. When I say speed and execution, or self-awareness to know what you like, which was easy for me in wrestling. Then it was being just create content, throw it up against the wall. If it sticks, fantastic. If it slides off, then just move on to the next one. Never be hesitant. I use the same motivation for me in the content creation as I did in the arm wrestling, which was I used to say to myself, there might be 1,000 losses on the arm wrestling table between me being a novice and me being the world champion. And so I say, I'm going to rack up those losses as quick as I can because I want to get to that number, whatever that number is.
That's
so
awesome,
Then I say the same thing in the content sense. I say, as a YouTube creator, there might be 118 awkward as hell videos that I'm embarrassed by before I get to the point where it's a full-time career. So instead of cringing and running away and hiding and turning off my YouTube channel when I put out that video that gets hammered by the community and people laugh at me, I tick it off as a success. I go, sweet, we are one awkward video closer to being full-time.
That's fantastic. That's such a good outlook. I love it. I'm going to take it and use it.
So for aspiring athletes or anybody that's looking to establish a social presence, what is the strategy? Do you have pillars? What are you working towards here? Because this consistency is obviously one of the keys, but you've got a very determined strategy here.
Yeah, so I do have a general sort of concept that I use, and it all does start from self-awareness, being what it is that you enjoy. And once you identify what you enjoy, i.e. arm wrestling, I would document every single thing you do as the first thing. As your base level is document everything you personally do that involves arm wrestling, whether it's training, whether it's thinking about training, whether it's watching a video about it, whether it's training, whether it's having a match, doesn't matter. Anytime you're in that column of life that is arm wrestling, film it. From there, release it without hesitation. And then from there, you're going to need to go into a process of refinement. And because your production value is going to be dog's breakfast at first. And it's going to be terrible. Audio is going to suck. Your camera is going to just be your phone, which is pretty good these days. I mean, Devin Larratt has made an entire YouTube career filming from his phone. So it can be done. But that is my base level, is document your own story. As you go on, you're going to find other things you enjoy doing. You might enjoy coaching. Think of channels like Voice of Arm Wrestling. They started out documenting, but they found coaching. For me, I like a little bit of coaching. I like the commentary side of things. People like Jake Ward, Aussie arm wrestler, he likes the comedy side of things. He started out in that respect. Whatever it is, you're going to find different avenues that you like, and just be yourself. Don't hesitate to post. And then you will get better at it. Like anything, you will get better at the production. You will get better at knowing what your audience wants. read every comment. Don't let the comments affect you, but read every comment for the reason of just so you know what the audience is enjoying, what they're not enjoying, and listen to them, take them on board, thank them for it, and post another damn video. Like, it's hard. It really isn't.
Just keep pushing through.
Yeah, like, it just, if you enjoy it, you won't stop. That's the thing, and that's where Gary's big self-awareness thing is the cornerstone of it all. If you're doing what you love, you'll get there. And this is when people say, should I jump all into an arm wrestling content or to whatever their passion is, content creation on YouTube, I say, hell no, don't do that. If you quit your job, your day job, and go all in on YouTube, you're going to then resent that passion you have because you're not going to earn enough. Just reality is you're not going to earn anything.
Yeah.
So do it in your recreational time. As it starts to earn $100 a week, drop a day's work off if you want, or whatever. And then as it gets up to 500, all right, drop four days work week off, or whatever.
Yeah.
And whatever you can afford given your living expenses. And just, if it's what you're genuinely enjoying in life, you will have no problems doing that, and you'll love the whole process, and it won't bother you that you're earning nothing for the first few years. If we could all, if everyone was out there that's considering a career like this was told, look, it's going to be 6.5 years before you are making a full-time career, but you will have it at 6.5 years. If you knew that definitely, you would do it without a doubt, because at the end of the day, it's what you enjoy. So,
well, it's the same as like a university degree or something like that. You know, people are studying for 6 years without being paid, and it's like, well, there's a job at the end where you're supposed to get, you know, as soon as you graduate and you go and start earning money. If you look at it that way, and it's like, okay, well, it's going to be 4 years, 6 years, 10 years until I get to the point. But if, as long as you're enjoying it and this is the thing you really love doing, then you will get to that point. And it doesn't matter that you didn't earn money all the way up. It's like, I didn't do it for those years because I was trying to earn money from it. It's like, I did it because I loved it. I loved doing it. I loved training. I loved going, you know, to the sessions and filming it and talking about it and getting other people involved in it. And then eventually it might get to a point. It might not get to that point, but you might get there where it's like, okay, now we can have this as a career, which is what Ryan's done.
Yeah. Well, Gary Vaynerchuk often talks about, if you've got a job that's 8 hours a day and you've got a passion and you're complaining that you're not living through your passion, then maybe you need to spend 8 hours a day on your passion after you've finished work. And that's your part-time job. That's your side hustle. Dedicate the time to it. Yeah. And then 100%. Maybe after 4.5 years, somebody will watch.
So if you go and look at my channel, in that 4.5 year slog, if you go and look at what was the most prevalent content that I was releasing then, it was a vlog. I called it the Daily Arm Wrestle. Mm-hmm. And I filmed, like I did exactly what I was just saying. I filmed everything I did that was in the space of arm wrestling and around my job. And I would finish my day, spend time with my family. They'd all go to bed, and then I'd start editing for the videos. And I would go to bed usually around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, because that was when I finished editing and posted and engaged with the content. And then I'd sleep for 4 hours and get up and do the day again.
Yeah.
And I loved doing that. I did love doing it. It was so much fun. Honestly, it was. And I made nothing.
Yeah. And so is arm wrestling now the full-time gig? This is what your full-time 100% arm wrestling content creation?
That's fantastic.
So good.
Do you think you're the first to get there?
I think that I was maybe the first, maybe. I think there's a few now, but I'm not sure. I think I might have been the first. But Devin is now. Raymond Lopez is from Voice of Arm Wrestling. He is now. I am now. Arm Wrestling TV. Alex Beziaskov definitely is.
Yeah,
he's making $1 million a year doing what he's doing.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Don't quote me, but he would be around that level.
Yeah.
Schoolboy.
And there might be a couple others, but yeah, there's not too many at the moment. Maybe 4 or 5 of us at the moment.
Have you thought about getting a baby-faced brother that looks weak and putting him on a
I did experiment with a series called "Can You Beat This Skinny Guy?" where I was like Jordan Davis.
That's the one. Yeah,
that was great.
Jordan and Lachlan are a great example of when Jordan and Lachlan turn on their YouTube channels properly, and they both will at some point in time. Like, I think it's inevitable they will, because they're both badass arm wrestlers, genuinely elite. And they're both kind of been part of my story a lot. So the world actually knows a hell of a lot about both of them already.
Yeah.
And I think that if they get to the point where they are genuinely cracking into the top 10 in the world and they're recognized globally as superstars, they will have that Matt Mask sort of moment where literally they can just go start creating low budget content, but because your real world status is up here, and because they've already had that entry through my channel, they'll both be mega overnight, I think. So I'm surprised Jordan hasn't turned it on yet, because he's a wealth of knowledge. He could share so much about the sport. He really is talented, and people would listen and people would watch. And Jordan, if Jordan just did an opinion video whenever he had an opinion about anything going on in the sport, when he just explained some technique every now and then and just filmed his own matches and his own training, Jordan would be pocketing at least $500 to $1,000 a month for that, for sure. Like, that's very easy for someone Jordan's level.
And what do you think of the blockages for people to make that transition from a sport they love to making money from a sport they love?
The hurdles that you'll face, that I faced, the biggest one is your own self-doubt. I think self-doubt is a huge block. Like, so when you first start out, no one's watching, and the people that are mostly laughing.
And is that magnified by social media?
Yeah, big time. The internet's a weird place. It really is a weird place. You'll get criticized hard. Your buddies will be the first ones to laugh at you. And your local arm wrestling cohort will tell you that it's embarrassing that you're creating this content, and everyone will just think you're an idiot. That's just what will happen. That's what I experienced. I really did. Yeah. And I got that on a local level, then on a state level, then on a national level. Now I'm in the thick of it of an international level.
Yeah.
But the next chapter is the internationals accepted me, and I'm just up here now. So what I've seen the exact same community reactions on the micro level all the way up to where I'm at now, and it's exactly the same the whole way. It's just a bigger bunch of people doing it.
And do you think that you fast-tracked your way to that top level because of your social presence as much as anything?
Oh, without a doubt. Arm wrestling, my social presence has it's given me a ladder to actually climb in an arm wrestling sense outside of traditional methods. I didn't have to. Everyone else is trying to get a call up to WAL. Everyone else is trying to go through the PAL. Everyone's trying to use the reputation of their local tournament as something, which, let's be honest, they're still real things, but you can't always rely on those. You don't get the opportunities. It doesn't line up. Where for me, I can say like my last super match that happened, the Chance Shaw, for instance, I flew to Florida. I said to Chance, I will put $500 on the table. You don't have to put anything on the table. Winner of the match takes the $500. And I create my own opportunities because the YouTube channel is going to pay for it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing.
It's all content.
I've got my ladder. Like, trust me, if we didn't have this damn 2-week quarantine on return thing in Australia right now, next week I'd be in Bulgaria or something like that.
So that's the aspiration: take the show on the road, go international as soon as you can.
Yeah, I need to take Lachlan Adair overseas and get him to fight someone. I don't know.
So for those that don't know, share a little bit about Lachlan Adair.
Man, Lachlan Adair, I think he's genuinely the number one in the country, and by a considerable margin. He is phenomenally strong. He came from the background of powerlifting. He got interested in the sport to a proper degree probably about 2 years ago. And when he did that, he enlisted Giannis Amelins to coach him, to guide his every single set and rep throughout the week.
And Giannis is a world champion.
Multiple world champion, legend of the sport as a lightweight, one of the best of all time. And Giannis directed all that. Now, Giannis reported back to us through Lachlan and everyone, Lachlan, you are really, really, really strong. And like to the effect that Lachlan's numbers in the gym are 20% better than anyone's in Latvia's. They're doing the same lifts. Lachlan is stronger than everyone in Latvia by a friggin' country mile. Wow. His numbers, and this is where the delusional Ryan Bowen series, I'm about to add another one, but Lachlan's numbers are Saplenkov level. They just like in his arm wrestling specific numbers, he's Saplenkov level, he's Levan level. He's as strong as those guys are in the gym. We can't deny that. But then the question is, where's he on the table? And that's just annoying that COVID hasn't given us the opportunities. And he's really improved on the table. 6 months ago, I could still get through a door and give him problems. And that wasn't because of a lack of strength. It was a lack of efficiency on the table. In the last 6 months, he's improved that to a degree where he's now realizing his strength, and he's able to control to a degree where I literally can't do a thing to him. I can't feel the limit of him. I just can't. And I know I'm a pretty damn good arm wrestler. I think I genuinely am number 2 in the country. He is number 1 is just out of my reach. I cannot feel it at all.
Wow.
So I'm so excited to see. I think whoever he pulls next internationally, the world is going to be stunned. It won't matter who he pulls. He could pull anyone. If he pulls someone that the world thinks is his level, he'll toy with them. If he pulls someone that at the like Todd Hutchins level, which is what I know Lachlan wants and what I would love to see him, I think he'll beat Todd Hutchins quite convincingly. I think he'll beat him in a hook even. No worries at all. And that would just blow the minds of the world. If Lachlan goes to Zloty next, and let's say, I think he wins the 105 kilo Zloty, and then he goes into the overalls and he's right there at the pointy end. And it's just like, if that happens, the world will lose its shit in the Australian arm wrestling.
You'll have to get him to start a YouTube channel then.
Where his YouTube channel will blow up. Everyone will be like, hang on a second, who is this dude?
Yeah, it was frustrating with COVID kind of ruined Lachlan's moment in a little bit of a way in a few months ago, that he was supposed to go against the current, the former number 1 now, with Milkman, Ryan Scott. So Ryan Bowen had flown over to Perth. They were going to have this match. It was going to be between Lachlan and the Milkman. And Lachlan got there, he was there, and then they released like a shutdown thing, and they said, you have to come back, you can't stay. And so Ryan thankfully went against Ryan. It was Ryan versus Ryan match, and Ryan Bowen convincingly won. And then for you to say now that you can't do anything to Lachlan at all, it just really elevates that level that he's on.
And that's the thing about the international perception, is none of that changed anything for the internationals. They don't care that I beat Ryan Scott. They don't care that Lachlan could beat me. They're just like, yeah, you're still Aussie.
Yeah. Nothing changed there.
The reality of it is, for me, is that whenever I speak to Americans and I say, all right, here's my logic. Try to pick this apart. And I bet you can't. My logic on Lachlan is, okay, my last 5 super matches, I beat Chance Shaw, I beat Dan Mosier, I beat Dallas Langston, I beat Alan Guerra, and I beat Evan DeBoyne.
So you didn't lose?
I beat those guys. And everyone's like, okay, yeah, you beat those guys. Okay. Then I say, okay, I can't do a fucking thing to Lachlan. Can you tell me the name of someone in North America that can treat these 5 guys like Lachlan treats me? They all go, it's hard to find a name. Like you have to go to the Dave Chafee level. You have to go to the Devin Larratt level to be able to find someone. You do. Marcio can't do to those 5 guys what Lachlan can do to me.
Wow.
And when you look at it that way, you go,
he's in rare air.
Yeah, that's honestly, I think when he finally gets the chance to compete,
Sure.
we're going to see him at the level where he would be beyond the Marcios, beyond the Matt Masks. I think he's genuinely going to knock his way into that top 8 in the world.
Wow. If you had Lachlan now against, say, the top 5 guys, would he still be out? What sort of rank would you put him? Maybe top 10, something like that?
I think he'd have a wonderful match with Prudnik. I think he'd have a wonderful match with Hermes Gasparini. I think he'd have a wonderful match with Ongabayev. I think he'd get beaten by Levine. He'd get beaten by Dave Chafee. He'd get beaten by Devin Larratt. He'd get beaten by Truman, but he wouldn't look out of place. He'd lose, but he'd be like, I'm coming.
Yeah.
That's what he'd look like. I think he's at the Prudnik level.
Okay.
And how old's Lachlan now?
I think Lachlan's 33.
Still growing. Still growing.
He's only been in the sport for a few years, and it's crazy to see the progression that, you look back at some of his older matches and it's like, there were some losses and it's like, okay, but then the progression now. Hey?
You guys are South Australian, and so you're obviously big fans and you're all aware of Gunter Zbykovs and his caliber.
Yeah.
One thing that shows you Lachlan Adair's genetic potential in this sport was Lachlan Adair had been arm wrestling for 3 months. Lachlan Adair entered the Australian National Championships. At this point in time, Gunter Zbykovs had never been defeated by anyone in Australia. Lachlan Adair on the left arm, which is, I believe, Gunter's good arm as well, but it was Lachlan's strong arm at the time. Lachlan Adair beats Gunter's Bykovs in the Australian National.
Wow.
2-0. And as a 3-month into an arm wrestler to beat Gunter's Bykovs, that's no small feat.
We heard Matt's Gunter's story last week here, and Matt might be just falling a little bit short. I think.
Yeah, well, geez, we can't all be Lachlan there, but no, I couldn't move Gunter's no matter what, and he was very kind to me, and said that you're doing good, but really I was not even a tenth of what he was. I couldn't even put my hand around his hand. It was his hands are humongous.
So what's your best advice to people that are looking at getting into the sport now?
Oh, well, it's fairly easy. The sport will take control of you. So just run with it. You'll fall in love with it. It's like a drug. You can't get it once you've started. You're in. Just embrace it. Like anything, and as we've kind of all touched, if you love the sport first and foremost, you'll keep going. And the sport in Australia in particular is in a wonderful place. There's so many good clubs with great community behind them, and the training's awesome, and there's more and more opportunities coming up. So just enjoy it, and never stop, and don't get injured.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're all about hard-nosed journalism here, and I know Izzy's been doing some homework during the course of the week. So, Izzy, you had a question for Ryan.
I do have a question for you, Ryan. All right, this is a big one. Now, this may come as a great shock to most people. But, Ryan, word on the street is you've recently started this diet where you eat 1.5 kilograms of meat per day. Would you like to tell us more about this, please?
I'm actually literally today I'm filming a vlog of everything I'm eating, because when I put that 1.5 kilo video out yesterday, the amount of pushback it got on there, people were like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what's going on? But yeah, I'm eating 1.5 kilos of red meat a day at the moment. After this video, I've got 700 grams to go tonight. Wow. But this was something for me that it didn't come from me. It came from an expert way beyond my level. And I was fortunate enough that I had this guy reach out to me and say, Ryan, I would like to help you in a whole number of regards. And one of them being getting me into peak performance in a nutritional sense. And he directed me, he said, I want you eating I want you getting 300 grams of protein from red meat a day. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of protein. And he's like, I bet you're doing nowhere near that at the moment. I'm like, yeah, I'm probably getting 50 grams of protein at max. And I have a small stomach. I struggle with that. So a lot of people, I'm not just doing just meat, and there's definitely heaps of carbohydrates in there as well. So, but my priority is to get the meat first. So because I've got a small stomach and I've got to adjust this huge volume, I'm leading with getting the meat in first, and then if I manage to get it in, I'll reward myself with some carbohydrates. I'm eating, it's along the lines of the vertical diet, so eating a lot of white rice as well. My wife has cooked me today 2 kilos of rice pudding, which is
wow, 2 kilos.
2 kilos.
So that'll be 2 days worth. 2 kilos, a kilo a day of rice, and 1.5 kilos of red meat a day. And then anything else on top of that for sanity's sake is fine. But the meat is the priority, followed by the carbohydrates, followed by that. And this is all for growth. This is all to stimulate growth in my body as best as I possibly can, and just to get stronger. That's the goal.
Are you tracking it with like blood tests or anything?
Say good.
Are you tracking it all with like a blood test to sort of see where your levels are at?
This guy's asked me to send me blood tests, and we're going to do them once a month and everything. This guy's a world-renowned guy in this respect. So I like I said, I can't explain, Izzy, I do apologize. I can't explain why the hell I'm doing this on any sort of biological, scientific level. No idea. Everyone in the YouTube comments section probably knows more than me, but I highly doubt they know more than the guy that's directing it. So like I said, he's a world-class guy. So
that's just absolutely insane to me. Yeah, what I'd be really interested in finding out, you may not know yourself, is why it's not white meat chicken or fish like salmon, because to me those things are a really great way to get your protein and what I would have thought other things. But, I'm keen to try this. Tell me more, Ryan.
I wish I could just regurgitate the answers, because he did explain to me all of these sorts of things. And if you go and Google classic bodybuilder diets, if you look up Ronnie Coleman's diet, for instance, he's going to be smashing similar. He's going to be even more, more than this. He's going to be hitting 4 pounds of red meat a day.
All right.
I'm not Ronnie Coleman, but as an example, Ronnie was doing that plus eggs, plus carbs, plus everything. So it's not an uncommon approach amongst strength athletes, and it's a decision I've made because I've always wondered what my performance and body would be like if I ever got my nutrition in line. Yep. I've always just whatever the hell I want. I have way too much sugar, and I just suck at nutrition. So
So for those that might be as familiar with you, how tall are you, and how much do you weigh when you're competing?
I'm 6'1" and a half. So was that like 187 centimeters tall? I am this morning I was 96.2 kilos. In the nude.
Am I right to say that's you're getting heavier?
Yeah.
Normally you'd sit around early 90s, mid 90s.
My next few opponents are all going to be super heavyweights, so there's no point in staying light. I'm hunting big people, so yeah.
Who's your next guy you're targeting? Is it Marcus Thierry or is the guy from New Zealand? Or
I mean, Matau Warangi from New Zealand is probably my most likely next opponent. Either he pops over here or I'll pop over there, and we'll have that match. That adds some really interesting updates to the rankings. But on the bigger scale, there's King of the Table 2 from Larry Wheels and that I have a very real chance of being a part of. Wow. And the opponent that I've requested and I've been told should be possible, but we'll see, is Schoolboy. Schoolboy weighs Schoolboy weighs 266 pounds at his last event. So
that'll be big.
That's a lot of pounds.
He is just one of the top guys in the world at the moment. Yeah, destroyed Larry Wheels.
And if I don't, if I don't face him, even still, I've got to prepare for the. I've got to prepare for over the top 2 in November, which I'll be chasing Lachlan Adair. So if I'm going to chase Lachlan Adair, I got to get heavier.
Have you heard about the tournament in November, the Over the Top 2 tournament?
No, but is there an invitation for me too?
I think anybody can compete. There's the Stallone movie Over the Top from the 1980s, which is a
high watermark in arm wrestling culture.
Everyone who's talks about arm wrestling will bring up that movie usually, the hat backwards and the toothpick and the craziness. So they're doing like a replica kind of tournament.
Awesome. I'm going to start eating 1.5 kilograms of red meat every day. I'm so excited.
And there's a $10,000 first place prize. Is it right? It's $10,000 for first place, not spread across the divisions. I think it's $10,000 first place. So
$10,000. I think they have there is prize money on the other divisions as well, but like the original Over Top, I think like the original Over Top, I think there was first prize in your weight category was like $5,000 or something, and John and a lot of people didn't pull their weight categories because they all wanted to go for the overall class, which was the B double. And I think John sold that B double for $170,000.
It's a truck, like a semi-trailer.
Wow. And what do you think about the sport kind of looking back retrospectively at the movie and that being the main event? How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I mean, I love the movie Over the Top. I'd seen it as a kid and enjoyed it. Thought it was awesome. It obviously had a big impact. If you talk to anyone from the USA, it was a huge part of changing the sport for them, and there was more interest in the sport as a result than any other time in and around that decade. So it had a big impact, undoubtedly. A lot of people were hopeful at the time that was going to be the catalyst to the sport becoming truly a professional sport. It wasn't, unfortunately, but it no doubt played a big role in it, and I think it made a big impact on the sport in a positive way. But here we are.
What are the dangers of running a retrospective event like that? It is some 30 years down the track, do you think?
Well, I think the Australian Arm Wrestling Federation, because of COVID, they weren't able to spend their usual marketing budget in the way that they normally would, rather than spreading it out over a bunch of tournaments like they may have otherwise. Because of COVID, they've condensed it all into one event. So they thought, well, what's the maximum impact we can make? So the over the top two, the replica, down to the details of the tables. It's going to be in a casino. It's going to be themed. Everything's going to look and feel exactly like it. The drawers will be done the same. Refereeing will be the same.
Stallone will be there. No, not really.
Send him a DM.
I don't know if they're going to get there yet, but I think they're genuinely trying to get him there. But
Really? Oh,
Holy
man.
shit, I'm so training so hard for this.
Wow,
Ryan, will you be my coach?
I think that I know Devin Larratt has expressed an intent to be there. Ryan Espy as well. John Brzezinki has said that he would be willing to come. So
Oh my God.
there's so many things that would make that a moment that would be amazing. And to be honest, if those names come, people like Larry Wheels probably comes as well.
Isabella Rossitano, Matt
Yeah,
Rocca.
maybe.
It really could be an amazing event. The one thing I hope and pray happens before then is that damn 2-week quarantine for Australia. But I don't know. My gut feel is it's just going to be Aussies and Kiwis there because of it. But we'll see.
And what do you think the effect of crossover athletes has been on arm wrestling over recent times? So Larry Wheels,
Undoubtedly
Juji.
it's massive.
Yeah.
Juji Mufu, as you mentioned there, was probably the first one to do it. Devin Larratt and Juji. I don't know where they met, but they started collaborating, and Devin was an instant hit on Juji's channel, and Juji somewhat fell in love with the sport, got involved in Bottom 8, and brought a lot of his audience to our sport. And he kind of faded out in his actual interest in pursuing the sport, but he had a WAL match. He did a few exhibition things like that, and definitely helped. And then Larry kind of did the same thing, but fell in love with the sport even more, and to the degree in which he now thinks that in 3 to 5 years' time, people are going to know him as an arm wrestler.
Wow.
It's out of his mouth that that's what he wants. So you think, wow, that's cool. For Larry to want that is going to drag our sport up a long way in terms of the social media reach and impact. And we saw that, a great example of when Khaled pulled on Larry's channel, how Khaled looked strong in one video, and all of a sudden, if you were to poll the entire world who the strongest arm wrestler in the world is, it was Khaled. So that showed you how impactful Larry's channel was on the sport. So slowly, because Larry's done an amazing job of bringing out all these different professionals and now hosting the King of the Table event, I think Larry's audience is starting to actually mature into an understanding of what this sport really is, and that's awesome. So big hats off to Juji and Larry for what they've done, and there'll be more to come. I think Eddie Hall's quite interested once he's done with.
He's done a little bit.
Once he's done with Thor.
Yeah.
Jeez, Eddie Hall.
He was on with Neil Pickup. I saw. I think Neil was showing him a couple of things on the table. Weren't they supposed to have an arm wrestling match between him and Thor as well as the boxing, or that just?
I'm not sure. Well, Eddie Hall was going to have a match with RVJ in WAL.
Okay, cool.
That was actually on the cards properly. That was the same card that I was going to be facing Brendan Lemon. So, which honestly, we all know that RVJ was going to crush him for the same reason we crushed Larry, but still it would have dragged a lot of people over. And I think that Eddie's really good mates with Neil Pickup, so it won't be a surprise if Eddie does come across, especially now having seen the success that Larry's had with it. So, and when I say success, I'm talking about YouTube success, which is money. A channel of Larry's level is making a lot of money.
So do you think that's what makes it easy for a personality with Larry's following to put on a world-class event, as we just saw with King of the Table, just the best athletes in the world converging on Dubai? To be honest, like, the production values weren't fantastic. The venue didn't look great, but it didn't matter because millions of people tuned in, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, money does make things easier, and Larry's grown an empire and a business through everything else he's done in his strength pursuits, and he's done it to an amazing degree. So we're just fortunate that he's now fallen in love with our sport and he's spending some of that money on us, which is amazing. But undoubtedly, I mean, that's been the model that I've been slowly growing, being the, like I said, my Chance Shaw match. I funded the travel, I funded the prize money, and we put a video out and we got great viewership for it. Larry's doing the same thing, just on a bigger scale, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you were looking to do something similar with RVJ yourself not too long ago.
That's still very much for me. The model is gain a storyline, gain an opportunity to put third-party sponsors in behind it. I personally am not a fan of. I'm not a fan, but I think that the free model is actually more powerful for our sport right now than the pay-per-view model. I think that we could potentially grow it. Like for me, my how I would do it if I was the person behind that was doing the investment into the any given event. I would contract out that live stream to 10, 20 different big YouTube channels.
Yeah.
So we would all have the live stream going.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask each of those people to do it through a Zoom call or whatever. So I would go live on my channel. They do it live on theirs through a Zoom. They add their little commentary to it as they watch it. So it's still their flavor. Their audience still feels like it's coming from them. They're getting their perspective on it. And for the right to broadcast that, we would negotiate a split on the revenue from their live stream on each of their channels. And that goes back into covering production costs and prize money and whatnot. And I think the viewership we would get if you had Devon, Larry Wheels, Arm Wrestling TV, Eddie Hall, Hafthor Bjornsson, all going live on an event, you're going to have the biggest viewership that we've ever had for an event. So that's how I would do it. But I could be wrong. I don't know. But I think that that's one of the ways that can be done.
I think you're absolutely correct on that. The more people that can have access to it, especially for free, if you could say, hey, here's the thing, let's have a look. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of months. You can just load it up and watch it. You don't have to pay for it. It just compared to, there's this thing, but you've got to pay even, $8 or $10. It's like, I'm not going to do it because I don't really know what it is. So
that event was successful for Larry financially, I believe. He did profit from it, it's proved that if he profits from it, it's going to grow, which is good. And that's why he's doing King of the Table too. But to be honest, the reason it profited was because of Devon Larratt. Mm-hmm. Devon Larratt carried the back of that promotion, probably 80-90% of it. We'd take Devon Larratt out of that promotion and it's going to be very, very difficult. So Devon himself is such a powerful entity in the sport of marketing right now. And I think the pay-per-view model is fraught with danger that it won't last and it won't work for matches that don't have Devon Larratt in it at this stage. It may in the future, but I agree. I think the free model is a powerful model right now, for sure.
It's sort of like it's so good to be able to see that people are being able to build these brands, build these channels, through the sport. Doing it their own way. It's like Larry Wheels is like, he's built his empire, powerlifting and doing all these other sort of sports and now arm wrestling as well. But, he would have started with 0 followers, 0 subscribers. And it's like to say, okay, well, I'm going to create this thing and I'm going to get people on board. And rather than I need to approach a media company, I need to approach a TV channel or anything like that. I'm going to do this thing like you've done with your channel as well, where it's like, this is my passion. I'm going to film it. I'm going to start putting videos up. I'm going to create this brand, and there's nothing in this sport that it represents the things that I want. So I'm going to build it instead of saying, there's no path to it. It's like, well, let's create it instead. Mm-hmm. And the ability to be able to do that these days, you can do it with YouTube. You can do it through social media and create the vision that you want. It's great for me. I'm really excited. When I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm just like, oh man, especially like I
get really excited with the revenue sharing model. Like I love the idea of, for instance, we do this in Australia, and this conversation is probably stimulated enough that I'll probably do this for my next super match. And in the model, what I mean will be, let's say I have a super match with Matt Ring. I'm over there. I'm going to go live, and there's going to be no commentary on my live because I'm going to be pulling it. But I ask you, Matt Connolly, I ask you, Dave Stockbridge, I ask the arm wrestler, anyone else who's got a YouTube channel, I ask you all right, I want you all to go live. I want you all to screen share my original video, and I want you to, via Zoom, add your commentary on it. So your head's going to be in the video in that top right corner, and you commentate the damn match. And then we go, you send me 50% of the revenue that you generate on your channel to help me cover my costs, and the reward for you is you're going to get some cash from an event you didn't need to organize, and you're also going to get some subscribers. And the people that love your commentary are going to be so happy that they get to hear your commentary on a match that they wanted to see. I think it's really and And what I can say is I can then sell to a potential third-party sponsor. I can say, I've got these 5 channels all broadcasting live. They have this many subscribers. Okay, there might be some overlap, but there's a good chance there's a lot of unique ones in there as well. So we're going to have a subscriber base of all of this going live on the event. And that's going to give me more opportunity to sell to a third-party sponsor. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. I mean, Ryan's helped me a lot with my side of things in terms of getting everything up and running for the SA Titans Club. And any time that I have a question, he always answers straight away. It's been fantastic. It's one of the things with this sport is that everyone seems to be, even at the top levels, you know, you can write to Michael Todd and he'll write back. Like, it's just so weird to me because it's like, this is, you know, the world champion or, you know, number one, number 2 in the world in this sport. And they're happy to answer a question from somebody they've never met. And, you know, Travis Bajan ringing you up or you're going staying at John Brzezinki's house. It's like, oh my God, it's like, you think of any other sport, it's like, say basketball, be like, okay, Michael Jordan, you just send him a letter, yeah, come over, mate, we'll stay there for a whole week.
Not inviting you around, is he?
So, yeah, that, I don't know, it just seems to be with, maybe it's combat sports in general, but maybe it's the level that this sport is at with arm wrestling being at that grassroots, but it feels very like a tight-knit community, even though it's, you know, worldwide, that people are willing to support each other and help each other. And you can reach out to these people and they're quite willing to sort of reply back, help you out, you know. Yeah, it's fantastic to see it.
Do you think one of the exciting things about arm wrestling at the moment is that it is the Wild West in some respects? There's not a top-down governance structure. You don't have necessarily a peak body that's issuing decrees to everybody else and pigeonholing athletes into certain sponsorship agreements, and that there's opportunities for people like yourself to essentially do your own thing. And for as long as that's entertaining people, that's enough. That's the key metric.
There are a few organizations that do try to do that, but
almost under an old school model.
Like the WAF ban athletes that compete in this body, or if you go and compete in anything else other than WAF, you get banned from WAF, which is really
not the way to do it.
Wait, so to clarify, you're saying that if you compete in a different league in arm wrestling, they won't let you compete in the bigger leagues? Is that right?
Yeah, it was competing organisations.
Yeah. So I, when I went and competed in this body too, I got a 1-year ban from WAF.
Okay.
I'm now back. I'm on the green list again now. I can compete if I wanted to, but I do plan to go to Zloty in November this year, so I'll be banned again.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
Yeah, so what effect could that have on your career in being banned from one of these associations?
This is one of the reasons why a lot of the Eastern European athletes don't have a brand as yet, because they're kind of stuck, and they're stuck because the WAF is a very significant league. They have a great relationship with the governments of many nations in Europe. For example, if you're in Kazakhstan or you're in Georgia or you're in Bulgaria, if you are in the top 5 or 10 or whatever it is for their country, you're actually paid a salary from your government. So, but they have to compete in the WAF pathway for that. So, it is a good system for them in that respect, but those people then look outside that little cage and they look at the Devon Larratts and the Levon Billies and the Ryan Bowens now, and that pits them off that someone like me gets all this attention.
So you've got these sorry. So you've got these emerging federations. It's almost like a heavyweight champion boxer where you've got, like, he might be the heavyweight with that federation, but over here he's not recognised. And you've got, is there any signs whatsoever of there being a unified belt or a unified?
There is.
Do you feel that'll happen in your lifetime?
I don't think it'll be a unified belt as such, but I do think that Devon Larratt is the tip of the spear. Devon Larratt is earning enough money now doing his own promotions that he doesn't need to take orders from anyone. And he's more powerful than Igor Mazarenko's entire PAL. And he can command that match. And I'd bet money that match happens. Devon and Levan will face in the next 6 months. I would almost guarantee it, because of the power of Devon's social media impact. It'll be phenomenal. And I think that will force organizations like the PAL and that to adapt. That they have to realize that athletes are now making more money doing their own thing. than they ever did by competing in their league. So it's got to change.
That's it. Put the matches together that people want to see.
Yeah, it means that the personalities are now circumventing the system essentially. So, and which means the people get what they want.
Exactly, that's right. I mean, you want to see. I mean, everyone wants to see Devon and Levan, and it's like Igor saying that he can't do it. It's holding it back. It's like the world wants to see that match. It's like that's the match to make. It's going to make the most money. It's going to make the most people interested in arm wrestling. It's going to get the biggest viewership. And you got one side, Igor's side, saying, "No, we're not going to do that." It's like, what are you doing, mate? This is a humongous opportunity here, and you have access to do it. Reach out to Devon. I'm sure you can put this together. So, to sort of restrict that,
I can say for you guys that 100% I'm aware that there are active negotiations going on between Igor, Devon, and Levan. So
cool. That's a Daily Combat exclusive.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, well, that's great. Who would you pick B in that match?
It's 6 months ago, absolutely Levan. Levan was simply too big, too strong. As technical and as resilient as Devon was, I didn't think he had enough power to get into the match against Levan. The Devon we saw defeat Michael Todd was a very, very, very different Devon. I think that Devon is ready for a match with Levan. I think he is strong enough to get into the match. He's going to be resilient enough to get a stop. And I think if he does get a stop, he wins it. I actually would have Devon Larratt winning that match right now.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to see it. I just want to see it. How do you think Michael Todd would have gone against Levan?
I still think he's a shot. Like he's got one of those awkward styles and strength that is just difficult. I do think Levan is the favourite to win it, but I don't think that Michael's out of the conversation. Levan has never pulled a King's mover of that degree. Devon has the perfect set of tools to counter Michael Todd. Levan doesn't have that same set of tools. Levan is much more rigid in his movement. He's power-based as opposed to the depth and control. Like Devon can bend his wrist so far. He can get so far and out his shoulder. He can over-rotate you. Where Levan, he can't do any of that. He just has to power through you. And if Michael's pronation survives, then Levan is in trouble against Michael.
So do you see the relevance and maybe even the power of these governing bodies or these associations fading as people do turn to YouTube?
I think that they all need to evolve really quickly. They need to be aware that, like, I think the WAL has done that. You'll see that their banner was on the King of the Table event. Yeah. They co-promoted it, even though they're not doing anything, which was, to me, that's a wise decision. Where Igor resisted it and fought back and said no, and then tried to build up the whole thing. Yeah. So for me, the tide is rising, and at the moment, the PAL is still anchored down here. And if they don't untie that damn anchor soon, they're gonna drown. Yeah. So I think that they need to evolve, and I think they will. I think that Igor will see that, and I expect the top 8 series to happen this year. I expect Levan to pull Dave Chafee next. But I think once that's concluded, before this year's out, we're going to get Levan and Devon. And it will probably be under the PAL. If I had to bet where it was going to be, I'm going to guess it will be under the PAL. Because let's face it, the PAL has great professionalism in their events. They look amazing.
They do.
Their events look top-notch. And Devon will, I think, be very satisfied to travel into the Lions Den and win. I think that sets his legacy up really well.
What a great story too. What a great story.
Yeah, it's East versus West thing. And yeah, the league versus league, which league is going to come out on top in a way. I think that's why Igor is hesitant as well. He might be worried that if Levan loses, how does that impact his side of things?
His brand.
Exactly,
well, heaven forbid, if Levan loses to Dave Chafee, then, oh my goodness.
It's going to destroy the event there. That would actually mess up a lot of things.
Dave Chafee is a bad dude. Like he may have enough to beat Levan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dave is one of the few people that has pinned Denis Saplenkov. So anyone that can pin Denis Saplenkov is a genuine threat to Levan.
Yeah.
And he may do that. And if that does happen, that upsets the apple cart something serious, and poor old Eagle is going to have to lick his wounds.
That's right. Just to highlight how strong Dave Chafee is, I remember sending you a video. I had done a preacher curl, and I think it was 80 kilos. I think it was 80 kilos.
Nice.
Right.
Good
and
work,
I was
man.
very, very happy. Sent it to
That's more than me.
Right,
yeah.
But you wrote back, Dave Chafee does more than that with one arm, and sent a video of him doing reps.
No, get out of here.
With
Get out of here.
85 kilos on a preacher curl. Like it was,
one arm.
He was just casually.
Over 80 kilograms on one arm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on YouTube still.
How much meat does he eat?
Yeah. He's up to 3 kilos a day. Yeah. And my ego went. So, yeah.
I feel like I need to write this down, honestly. Like, okay, so I have to reach more than 80 kilograms with one arm. That's more than my body weight.
Yeah. And I be the best in the world. That's all.
Yeah.
The 80 that I got was both arms, obviously, and struggling bright red just got it.
Yeah.
And to see him doing it casually, I mean, he was putting some effort in, but it was 4 or 5 reps with 85, 90 kilos or something. And it was just, that's the level they're at, and that's the level I'm at. So, yeah.
So what's been the impact of arm wrestling on your body over the last 10 years?
Interesting question. My right arm doesn't straighten like my left. My left arm will go.
Oh, yeah, that one's all right.
My right arm stops there.
Oh, no, that's weird.
I feel like this is a medical assessment now. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
And is that through injury, or is that just,
no,
that's just now?
That's just repeated tension to the elbow, I think. And it's just the tightening of tendons and ligaments, and maybe calcifications of joints as well. But if you look at an arm wrestler like Devin Larratt, who's been going for 25, 30 years, they can't straighten their arms at all. So I think that's one of the things. If you've ever been in your first 6 months of arm wrestling and gone to try and throw a baseball or something like that, you'll realize, oh my goodness.
and so, because you recently had all your measurements done, because you recently got married, and so you needed to get some suits, and so you'd noticed some variances there in some of the key measurements.
That was actually so fortunate. I was really excited that the tailor that I used when I was a real estate agent some 5 years ago happened to be the tailor that I went to get my suit for the wedding.
Wow.
And he had all my measurements, my wrist, my forearm. like he had everything. And I'm just like, this is absolute gold. I can't believe I can see it. And everything. I'd gone up like almost 2 inches in my wrist.
Wow.
2 inches in your wrist. So what was your wrist before? And what are you seeing
How big
now?
does my wrist need to be a good arm wrestler?
Can you put your wrist up to the camera again? Like if you turn it around. So I'll put it in this context, like for anybody watching at home. Like I've got a pretty big wrist. Like I've got 16-inch forearms. It's pretty big. But when I put my hand next to yours, it was like the difference between, I don't know, me and my dad, but when I was like 7. Like it's a different type of thickness there. So when you were human, when you were normal, what were your measurements in your wrist?
Well, I now measure 8.7. I was essentially a 7-inch wrist.
7-inch wrist. That's incredible. I
think Levan is a 10-inch wrist.
Wow. So 1 more inch and then you'll be there.
and so forearms
forearms, like straight forearms like that, I think from memory I'm like 15 and a half.
Yeah.
If I come up here like this, it goes to like 16 and a half.
Incredible.
But Lachlan Adair, just to talk about him again, he's got like 18-inch forearms.
His arms are ridiculous.
That's insane.
I remember seeing one of
Wow.
the photos that he put up. I think he was doing this pose, and this arm was as big as the rest of his bi and tri. It was just like, oh my God. I was in the gym. I had to show everyone that was there. Even though I didn't know them. I'm like, you got to see this photo. Yeah, just walking up to random people.
One of the things with a lot of people is that they think arm wrestlers have big biceps. Now, a lot of arm wrestlers, elite arm wrestlers, do have big biceps, but it's not really the bicep size. So, is it?
I get a lot of messages on Facebook Messenger from people that are new to the sport, and particularly out of India, I get a lot of messages
So do I, funnily enough.
different sort of messages, I'm sure.
One of the most common messages I get is biceps good for arm wrestling?
Biceps.
I don't even open the can of worms to answer them, but the answer is biceps are very low down the chain of relevance in terms of what's the most critical strength. Yes, having good bicep strength is definitely a contributing factor, but everything from fingers are so much more critical. Fingers, wrist,
To the side of the hand.
Very impressive, Brian.
It's just like that, though. You know,
Is the right and the left? Because I remember you saying you only do about 5% of your training on left. Is it significantly a size difference?
Yeah, well, you know, this is truly interesting. I'll see if I can get the perspective on this.
Get a ruler out.
My left and right. Let me just get it. If I put let's go a bit further. Give me a second.
That's okay. We've always got time for Matt to do a double bicep. So there we go. Okay,
Cut to
good.
Matt. Yeah, no, it's good.
That's how I walk around now.
Wow, your right arm looks
yeah.
significantly larger than your left.
Wow.
And also, my right arm is actually longer from elbow to fingertip. I don't know if you can see.
All right.
Oh, yeah. And was that always the case? Or is arm wrestling stretched your arm?
No, that was
Yeah,
not.
I was wondering that. I was genuinely.
It was definitely not the case. My right arm is bigger in every respect. It's longer, it's thicker, and that really shows you the effect of the sport. Because, like I said, it's been 8 years of me training exclusively right.
So your arm actually got longer.
My wedding ring on the left. My wedding ring on the left. And the right.
Incredible. So, I mean, you're deformed now.
No.
When Devin like holds his arm out, he can only get it to maybe there. When he walks, it sort of looks a little silverback, gorilla.
Yeah.
You could show a silhouette of
think
Devin, and you would know.
You wouldn't know if it's the Yeti.
It's just incredible. Your body changes though. Your body does evolve for your sport. It's funny because I swear my arms got a bit longer from canoeing as well. Like my arms are longer than my height. They always were, but I felt they got a bit longer myself. So I don't think I've got, or maybe I will be able to find the measurements, but that's crazy because there's a massive difference for those who are listening and not seeing. Ryan's right arm is definitely different in length and obviously size in general. So that's amazing.
What about with boxing?
Devin Larratt's example.
Maybe it's the boxing.
No,
Devin Larratt is about 6'6", maybe even approaching 6'7" in height. Devin Larratt has told me when he was a kid, he had a 7'1" wingspan.
Oh,
wow.
And now
It's 3
he
foot.
said it's only come back to 6'8".
That's quite funny.
Definitely changed. If you watch the two for me that actually look the funniest, like if I was a Hollywood director and producer and I was making a zombie movie, I cast Devin Larratt as the main zombie and I Dennis Plenkoff as the other zombie. They both walk around with their arms like this.
Yeah.
They just have that look that they just look like zombies, real life zombies to me.
Devin Suplenkov.
Devin Suplenkov?
Sorry, Dennis Suplenkov. I'm getting the troll army on YouTube. He'll probably love that. He's always
he finally got a
the
shout
first
out.
commenter on any of my videos, Devin Suplenkov. Dennis Suplenkov has the world record for strict curl, 113 kilos. So standing against a wall, you get the barbell and you have to wait for the referee to say go and then lift it straight up. Unbelievably strong. And there's so many videos of him doing 140 kilo curls, for reps in the gym. Absolutely one of the strongest guys in the world. He went against Devin a couple of years ago on left arm, destroyed Devin 6-0. It was
a different Devin to what we saw
absolutely
just a couple of weeks ago, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's on the comeback trail. He had a bit of some health issues, but we'll see how he goes. But yeah.
And for those that are listening or watching from home, just go to YouTube quickly and go Dennis Suplenkov versus walnuts.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So very interesting video if you want to see finger strength.
And Dennis the Flick Off breaks a chain. There's a video he gets a chain, ties it around his foot and the other part around his wrist and pulls it up in a bicep curl and snaps the chain. It's just ridiculously strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's that talk in arm wrestling circles that it basically, if you're going to start arm wrestling, then be prepared to have a toothache in your arm for at least 2 years. How long did the toothache last for you?
You have
I'd
teeth
say
in
that.
your arms? Sorry. Go on.
I think the toothache way is definitely a good way of explaining it. I use that terminology as well. It feels like that for sure. It radiates from the brachialis all the way up to the shoulder and all the way down to your hand and wrist. I remember training in my first few months where I couldn't pick up a cup of coffee. I had to drink my coffee to the straw.
Oh.
Working on myself and trying to use the cash register, and I just can't pick it up like this. I'm
So good.
buddies themselves to hospital with the pain of it. And a toothache, it's like that. It's like a big giant toothache in your entire arm, and it really is. But if you train efficiently and intelligently, and you use some relative perceived effort, and you don't like what kind of pins and money, you'll probably be fine. But most people can try to get it as hard as they can.
And are you injury free at the moment?
I was going to ask, yeah.
In serious injuries, I say yes. I have a lot of overuse sort of niggles and problems that I deal with. My shoulders have been the worst thing that I've had happen to me. On my right shoulder, I was considering getting surgery about 6 months ago. My surgeon looked at all the scans and said we could, but you don't necessarily need to. I think better off just the approach. I've done that. My shoulder's back to sort of 85% health, I would say, on my right. Funnily enough, my left, which I barely ever use, is actually rubbish right now. So I don't really understand why, because I don't use it. But other hand and wrist and elbow, yeah, in really good shape.
So I just say with the injury pain and not being able to lift your arm, one of my guys, Richard, Hands of Stone,
Yes.
he had a 3-hour session with Tim maybe 6 months into his training, and his arms were so sore. He drove home, and then he couldn't open the door to the car. It was hurting. He couldn't do the handle, and so he's honking the horn for his wife to come out, and she's at the window going, "What? What do you want?" And he's like, "Come out and open the door." And she's like, "What?"
Oh my gosh.
Great.
Oh wow.
So Ryan, tell us what the future is for what the future is for you over the next 6 or so months, and then what's the future for arm wrestling? Do you think over the next year or two, as this whole influencer athlete thing blows up, as these new promotions start to take hold, and as new audiences flock to arm wrestling?
Yeah, sure thing. For me, the next 6 months is all about hunting a few super heavyweights. Hopefully I get confirmed the match with Schoolboy. That'll be a huge opportunity for me as an athlete and as a brand on YouTube. I mean, he is the biggest arm wrestling channel in the world.
Yeah.
So if I could steal his little soul for a moment and just crush him.
How do you think
His
you'd go?
little schoolboy soul.
How kind.
You're pretty confident with that match?
I think that I have a great training partner in Jordan Davis to be able to prepare for him. He uses a very similar strategy and style. I'd expect Schoolboy to be stronger than Jordan, so I'd want to be crushing Jordan in the practice table before that match. But I think from a technical standpoint, because I've got someone as good as talented as Jordan to help me prepare, I'll be really tough when I get the match. And I think Schoolboy would be surprised if I can get that match into a hook. It's over. I will crush him. He'll not be able to move me in a hook. I'm certain of it. And I say that because I've watched footage of him. I've studied him, and he hates being forced into a hook. He really feels uncomfortable. If I'm unable to get him into the hook, it's side pressure. It's like what I did against Ryan Scott in round 4. Ryan Scott busted my wrist back, and as Ryan Scott was, that didn't matter. I just said, okay, I can absorb that and just drive through center with side pressure. So I would be ready to do that against Schoolboy too if I had to, and I think that would be entertaining. If the match goes like that, that'd be awesome. I'd actually love to
And to what extent are you going to address the weight discrepancy? Because it was pretty
To be honest,
substantial.
it doesn't bother me. I mean, he's 266 pounds. What is that, like 115, 120 kilos?
120, 125. Yeah.
So I will get it.
You can't rule out him putting on weight as well. He's a big guy.
If he follows the Devon Larratt pancake syrup diet, he'll probably go there.
That's a data much, right?
I have a feeling that Schoolboy would take this match incredibly seriously because he would be at risk of losing a lot. There's not a lot for me to lose in this situation. He would know that, so he would probably come in at 280 pounds or something like that. I don't know because I will agree to the match on those terms. I know that he won't cut weight for me, so I'll be like, you be as big as heavy, so will I. So I will. Hence, I'm starting on this damn meat thing. Part of the reason.
Do you think with Schoolboy and Larry that Schoolboy sort of allowed Larry into the match a little bit?
For sure. There was definitely moments where Schoolboy didn't put the sword to Larry like he could have, and we saw one round where he did fully just launch and flash pin him and just took away everything from Larry in the quarter. But that's fine. Larry, it's very difficult to compete at that level if your first ever match. Sure. Literally. If you remember back to all of our first ever matches, I'm sure we sucked, and Larry did as well.
I did in my last one.
I still suck no matter what.
Larry's got a long way to go in terms of just the familiarity of starts. He's got the fundamental strength, but Schoolboy definitely let him in. I would love to show Larry how to beat Schoolboy. I think I could do it. Danny Tesh once did it. I don't know if you're aware of that. Danny Tesh faced Schoolboy in the Hong Kong Arnold's and defeated him by handlers.
Is Danny...
That was a younger version. That was a younger, smaller version of Schoolboy. I think he was only 18 at the time. So now 21 or something like that.
Danny definitely retired?
I would never say never with Danny. He's one of those guys that I think he could come back and be relevant within 12 months of being back. So famous story for me about Danny Tesh was when I was about 8 months into my Toddzilla side pressure training. Really proud of where my side pressure was at. I got an opportunity to train with Danny in the gym. I demonstrated my 1RM to him, and it was red line. It was proper 1RM, and then he picked up those 10 reps with it. Side pressure was phenomenal.
Wow, that's insane.
So, what's coming up for the channel?
The channel going ahead. I mean, I'm really enjoying my breakdown series at the moment. I love commentating on great matches and giving my technical view of it. I obviously love arm wrestling, so I will hopefully pull Matsuo Rangi head tomorrow. So I think it was probably my next super match. From there, kicking the table too. Hope, and if not that, Zlotita, and if not that, over the top two here in Australia will be it. So that's for me. And then for globally, it's I think the continuation of the expansion of individual brand athletes and individual athlete brands. And I think that's going to be really impactful over the next couple of years. Once the money gets to the point where people are really making considerable amounts of careers, there's going to be a lot of reinvestment, and we're going to see a lot more athletes taking that path. And hopefully, we start to see Eastern European killers coming out of the woodworks and whatnot with YouTube channels, because I'm sure they'd all grow just as quickly.
Absolutely. Wow. So if people want to check out your YouTube channel, that's Ryan Blue Bowen. They can head straight over to YouTube right now.
And the next video I drop will be a full vlog of today's eating. So
excellent. Link me that one. I want to see that. Yeah, I'll follow your diet, Ryan. I'm going to follow your diet.
And pound for pound, people can jump onto
www.poundforpound.com. Yeah, and that's a real big energy for me at the moment, is to put a lot into all the training and there. So handles are in there at the moment. Like kind of the first crack at designing 4 handles that I'm really comfortable with. There's a lot more to come, and I know that's a big part of the expansion of the business. And the good thing is 90% of that revenue that we generate there is reinvested in sport.
Well, I used one of those handles this morning, and I feel stronger as a result. So there you go.
You look stronger.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you do. He's just walked in here today with so much extra strength.
So much stronger.
You know what? I want to get one of those handles. Where do I get them? Poundforpound.com.
Poundforpound.com. Well, thank you very much, Ryan Bowen, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us, and
thank you.
And we'll look forward to seeing what the future holds.
No, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate being on the show. You guys are nailing it. This level of production quality is super impressive. And was a really enjoyable chat. So thank you very much.
I'm
So,
so
Ryan,
fucking inspired by that guy. Oh, fuck it, guys. All right, you're going to make me a pro arm wrestler.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.